your 20s. Life is like a game, but who can answer this question? Love is always hard to guess, it always comes at the last minute. Often you don't believe it anymore, but it comes like a storm. I took my temperature 3 times today, I'm sure I was in good shape, but that's not it, that's just what it is. French love is always so passionate and passionate. There is only one youth, and some love only belongs to the 19-year-old, only belongs to the last boy's heart. Standing on the edge of maturity, fearless that he took the plane home for the first time. When he got on the plane, he saw a child occupying his seat. He was about to teach the boy a lesson, and the airman came over. The airman didn't drive the boy away, but took him to the first-class cabin. At this time, Alice, the executive of the magazine, was being harassed by a slightly greasy old man. She didn't hesitate, and pulled her directly to her side. The greasy man was strong, and she could only take her body back happily. On the way, Alice was always immersed in her work, and the first-class cabin bar got on the lift. She tried to draw Alice's attention in this way, and this strong woman in her 40s, never thought that the childish young man next to her would change her life completely. At this time, the plane was shaking violently without warning. The sudden weightlessness frightened all passengers, including the airman. At this time, something worse happened. The lights in the cabin went out in an instant. In the darkness and chaos, Alice subconsciously grabbed Bar's hand. Bar was shocked by this sudden contact. He could feel Alice's fear. He wanted to say something to comfort her, but he couldn't say anything because mind was her tears. Her subordinates called her a cold-blooded work machine, an old woman who didn't know how to live. But she didn't care. She believed that strength was the best proof. Her goal was clear and firm. She became the next editor-in-chief of this magazine. When she thought the position of the editor-in-chief had a suitable candidate, she simply couldn't believe her ears. She was the one who had the most ability to take this position. Had an open-minded personality and was good at building interpersonal relationships in the office. Although Alice's ability was unquestionable, the position of the editor-in-chief not only required professionalism, but also vitality, innovative thinking, and team building. In this respect, Alice obviously wrapped herself too tightly. This made people around her feel distant. She couldn't bring that kind of relaxed, fashionable, and refreshing atmosphere to the magazine. She didn't argue and didn't show more emotions. Her years of professional education made her put all her disappointment, anger, and dissatisfaction at the bottom of her heart. She just silently accepted this fact and was ready to devote herself to endless work. But when she turned on the computer, she found that the USB flash drive with the important plan was gone. When she was almost desperate, she accidentally saw the change on the computer screen. At this time, Ball was partying with his classmates. He excitedly reported the address of the bar. Alice didn't hesitate and came to the student party of Ball. This was the first time Alice came to this place where the light was dazzling and the music was loud. Everything here made her feel uncomfortable. She just wanted to get the USB flash drive and leave here quickly. But Ball said that the USB flash drive was at home and she had no choice but to go home. Cool wind at night made her a little more awake. When a pink lightning that seemed to last a long time appeared in front of her. She never thought in her life that she would walk on the streets of Paris at night in this way. She looked at Ball. After her face was filled with sincerity and anticipation, she still accepted everything silently. She took off the helmet that Ball gave her and was ready to put it on. Ball naturally came forward to adjust it for her. And this scene happened to be seen by a colleague of the magazine and was secretly filmed. From the perspective of the colleague, the two were clearly hugging and kissing. This was an explosive news. The two were just in love. But the strange thing is that Alice had a hard time explaining to the boy who was almost a stranger around her. The place where Ball lived was a student-like apartment. It was a little messy, but it was warm. She soon found the USB flash drive. Alice simply thanked him and then turned around and left quickly. But Ball followed until her best friend handed her phone to her. It was the photo of Ball wearing a helmet outside the bar last night. She immediately found the boss and wanted to clarify this absurd misunderstanding, explaining that she had not done anything to affect the image of the company. However, the boss's attitude was much more complicated than she expected and did not show the displeasure or reproach she expected. "Alice, why do you take the lead? That's what I want to see in you. That's what I'm looking for. A little bit of madness, a little bit of magic. There, with the little one, you make me dream. You have a rebellious spirit. And that's good. That's what I like." The boss's words made her stand still. This made her feel absurd and even more helpless. The betrayal of her ex-husband completely disappointed her in love. After the divorce, she raised her daughter alone and became a single mother. Now she has entrusted all her emotions to work and her daughter. It has long closed the door to love. Now someone told her that she needed a relationship to improve her career. In confusion, she complained to her best friend. Her best friend's advice coincided with the boss's words. Her best friend advised her that it was time to start a new life. It's not just for herself. Maybe it can also give her a complete family, even, as the boss implied, it may help her career unexpectedly. After Alice returned home, she first played a favorite song for herself. Then she poured a glass of red wine for herself. In the midst of music and alcohol, she opened the closet. In addition to those forgotten sexy clothes. A crazy idea came out of her heart. She let go of her past strong woman attitude. Although she is already 38 years old, her golden hair and red lips, and the delicate figure of the package, plus the elegant temperament of French women, are really charming. She took the initiative to come to the university in Paris. Her appearance in front of those youthful college students caused a stir. Those eyes that did not hide surrounded her instantly. When she saw Lantins in his heart. They visited the campus together. At the time, looking at Bar's eyes full of anticipation, they made the next invitation to him. Bar agreed without hesitation. At night, they came to the place of the date as agreed. Bar was instantly attracted by the full-frame projection technology at the door. He studied it curiously like a child. He couldn't help but touch those lights. If it were Alice, he might have thought it was childish or impolite. But this time, he chose to play with her. And all of this was seen by his colleagues. They were surprised by Alice's rapid change. After dinner, the two did not separate immediately, but came to the rooftop together to enjoy the night breeze. Here, Bar talked to Alice about his design and his view of visual art. Alice listened carefully. The light she admired and the laughter in her mouth were real and gentle. After that night, their contact became frequent. Alice got used to the loud motorcycle. She got used to feeling the freedom of the wind on the back seat. She even began to look forward to the freshness of Bar's ideas about the sky and the horses. Suddenly received a call from her sister. Bar avoided it on purpose and turned to her to show respect. But the rain was falling secretly. He still subconsciously covered the rain for her. He didn't know that on the phone, his sister was urgently arranging a blind date for him. The other party is a gentleman with good conditions. His career is successful. The most important thing is that he doesn't mind that Alice has a daughter. His sister urged him to go home immediately. After the call, Alice looked a little weak in the rain but tried to cover the rain for him. Bar had a complex emotion in his heart. He had no choice but to lie to Bar. His daughter was sick. He had to go home immediately. Bar didn't doubt at all. He rushed to the middle of the road and stopped a taxi. At that moment, his face was no longer boy's confusion, but a kind of determination and responsibility. Alice sat in the car and smiled without realizing it. Maybe the hard corner in his heart was slowly being opened by him. The blind date was arranged at his sister's house. The man was gentle and elegant, humorous. His economic conditions and social status were impeccable. He was the ideal marriage partner in the secular sense. However, Alice was a little distracted. Her thoughts always drifted independent that something was different. Alice took Bar to the fashion show of her company. It was famous and famous. It was a battlefield that Alice was familiar with. But it was a field that Bar was completely unfamiliar with. He carefully told Bar to pay attention to his words and actions. But the accident still happened. A model fell on the stage accidentally. When he saw that no one reached out for help, Bar was almost out of instinct. A swordsman rushed to the platform and raised his hand to help the press conference. The spotlight hit him and he seemed to be fine. However, the top of the brand did not get angry. Instead, he left a deep impression on this kind and a little reckless young man. After the event, Bar sent Alice home. Maybe it was because of tenors. Maybe he didn't want to end this beautiful night. Alice suggested going to a quiet bar. He moved there. Steps with the rhythm in the faint atmosphere and music. The distance was very close that they could feel each other's body temperature and heartbeat. The ambiguous atmosphere flowed in the air. Both of them were a little drunk and sent Alice home again. This time, Bar was brave enough to try to hold Alice's hand when he said goodbye. However, as soon as the fingers touched, Alice pulled her hand back like a beast. Because of the age gap of 20 years old, the society's vision, the acceptance of the daughter, and the uncertainty of the future, all kinds of concerns in reality suddenly came to mind. Bar tried to calm himself down and said good night in a low voice. Looking at Alice's distant back, he was strongly disappointed and unwilling to leave her again. He didn't want to give up like this, so he plucked up the courage to knock on the doorbell. When Bar learned that his daughter was not at home, he kissed her without hesitation. This kiss had a special impulse for a young man. Alice didn't push him away. Maybe deep in his through the barrier of self-restraint. In this way, the two finally confirmed their relationship. The next morning, Alice urged him to leave as soon as possible, because his sister and daughter were coming back soon. He didn't want them to see this scene. Bar put on his clothes and was ready to leave. When he walked to the door, he turned around and looked at Alice. With a love in his eyes, Alice walked forward, gently printed a gentle kiss on his lips. This made Bar excited and intoxicated. However, when Alice was about to go to work, he found a sign hanging on the tree at the door. There was also an arrow on the ground. He was curious and walked along the arrow. There was a recorder under the chair that he put on his earphones and then remembered Bar's voice. He invited Alice on a date. Alice excitedly got on his pink motorcycle and passed through the streets and alleys of the city. There was a happy smile on his face. The vitality brought by this love made him feel the beauty of life again and changed Alice's working state. His change was seen by his colleagues. Although everyone was surprised, they had to admit that Alice in love seemed to be more attractive and more creative. However, life is never sweet. Reality often brings dramatic changes to people. On a date, Bar suddenly confessed to Alice and began to look forward to their future. Alice felt soft in her heart. At this moment, his daughter suddenly called and brought Alice back to reality. Bar was speechless. He loved her. This love was strong and sincere, but he never thought about these real problems. These problems were beyond his current preparation and could not give Alice a satisfactory answer. Alice could only leave happily in the end. That he stared out the window in a daze. His eyes were full of exhaustion and determination. After the breakup, Bar was deeply depressed that he locked himself in the room and stared at the TV all day. The love that once shone on his life now became a shadow that trapped him. And Alice's work was also not easy. On this day, the boss of the company came to pick a model photo for the next ad. But he could not find a model that satisfied him. At this moment, the boss accidentally saw Bar on Alice's computer. The boss was shocked and decided to ask Alice to invite Bar to shoot this ad. Alice refused immediately. But her chief editor's attitude was very tough. She even agreed directly. She threatened Alice that if she could not convince Bar to complete this shooting, she could also consider submitting a resignation application. The career was Alice's last burden. She had no choice. In the end, Alice found Bar again. After a long time, there was only awkward and distant silence between the two. That the sweetness of the past was gone. Although Bar was upset, he finally agreed. There was still a faint hope in Bar's heart. Maybe this cooperation could make Alice change her mind. Unexpectedly, when he was chatting with Alice's best friend, he found out from the other party that everything Alice had done with him before was for his own work promotion. Bar heard this. In order not to embarrass Alice in public, he had to vent his pain in his heart. So under the spotlight, he suddenly held Alice's face and kissed her hard. This kiss was no longer an expression of love, but a revengeful vent and a public mockery, and in the next shooting, Barr was completely out of shape. Faced with the photographer's repeated unreasonable requests, Barr finally broke out. He felt like he was being played with. He didn't want to endure such humiliation anymore. Angry, he got up and left. Alice was shocked and came back in a hurry. She chased him up. She begged Barr to finish the shooting. But now, Alice is still thinking about her career. Barr's anger and despair were completely blown out. Bluffing, fuck that, I didn't see anything. I didn't swear to Caesar, but I think it deserves a little satisfaction. In the role of the bourgeoisie, who pretends to get out of his ass to get a fucking promotion. What's his name? Lantins. Lantins, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a big hand. Let's applaud him for the whole thing. Barr's loud shout won the whole scene. The boss was also watching. He suddenly regretted his words. Like a kid who did something wrong. Because at this moment, he was still subconsciously thinking about Alice. Looking at Barr, who was finally disappointed to leave, he stood still. A great sense of guilt and a sense of loss of everything drowned him. In the end, Alice couldn't keep her job. She lost the last pillar of her career. She completely fell to the bottom of her life. And only in such a low place did she have a chance to hear the truest voice in her heart. When she saw a passerby riding a similar pink motorcycle, she would come to her senses. But that wasn't Barr. On the tree at the door, there was still the sign that Barr had made, but after the wind and rain, the arrow pointing to the ground had long gone. She quietly took out the recorder. Barr's energetic voice was heard again. Listening to his voice, he felt a strange sense of tranquility and security. He didn't want to miss the most precious gift in his life because of reality and so-called reason. Alice came to Barr's university again. She didn't know if Barr was willing to see her, and she didn't know how to face it. She found Barr's classmate, but she was mistakenly thought to be a professor. She didn't wait for him to explain, and she left him alone on the stage. The students in the classroom stood on the stage in a strange way, avoiding the evil Alice. When Barr and Alice's eyes met, time seemed to stop. This time, she decided to be brave for her own happiness. I was bad, Balthazar. Did I think about you all the time? It's bad. Once we meet again. Alice didn't answer him. She reached out her hand, firmly and gently kissed him. At this moment, it was Alice who broke all the rumors of her uncle. It was her last and bravest pursuit of love. Barr tore off the so-called mature plastic wrap, and Alice used her complexity and elegance to teach Barr to love, and responsibility and responsibility. This is not a rescue of youth to middle age, but two special souls found the same frequency in their own time zones. So don't see it as a love story. It's a prophecy about courage. Do you dare to be willful for yourself? Do you dare to listen to the words in your heart when the whole world says it's inappropriate? I'm happy. True love never follows any social time. It only comes at the moment when your heart beats. Alice's unwavering kiss was not the end, but a declaration. After all, the biggest regret in life is never the failure after trying, but the mission that has not been tried.